Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Tuesday webinar on behalf of Every Mind at Work. I am Paul, as always, and today we're going to be looking at mindfulness. So hold on, let me just share my slides for today's session, and then we're just going to do a quick little check. Can you let me know if you can hear me and if you can see the slides? You should see a mindfulness written across the slides. Hey, Polly, hopefully you're well. Hey, Caroline, good stuff. Thanks, Nancy. Hey, Kelly. Cool. So all seems okay. So as I said, I appreciate you taking the time out on today's session. And again, as always, I want to encourage you to get involved, to use the chat box as well, and to make sure that, as I say, this is collaborative and not just me dictating to you as well. Katie, emailed you last week, not sure if you have received it. Let me just double check before we start. If I haven't replied, I do apologize. I've seen it and for some reason it's read and not responded. So Katie, I'll get back to that as soon as I finish this webinar. So guys, thank you for taking the time out. And today's subject is definitely one that has a lot of talk around it at the moment, mindfulness. You know, what does mindfulness mean? What's the impact of mindfulness? How can we get started when it comes to mindfulness as well? And as always, I'm going to share my own personal experience. I've spoken to Lauren Callahan, our head of psychology as well, leading to this, and got her opinions on this as well, which I'm going to be sharing with you. But really, hopefully by the end of this webinar, you're going to walk away with an idea of mindfulness, why it's effective, and also as well, how you can get started. And as I've said, I want you to share some of your own personal experiences throughout this session as well. I'm Paul, the founder of everymindatwork.com, also a mental health campaigner, and all further shares my own personal experience of mental health and losing my dad to suicide when I was 18 years old and dealing with that. And, you know, I'm very vocal about it now, but there was a long time where I wasn't vocal about it at all. So I'm going to be leading today's webinar and hopefully you're going to find it valuable. So before we start, as always, just want to ask you the question, how are you? How has your week been? Let me know. You can be as open and honest as possible if you want to. Let me know how your week has been. If you faced any challenges, again, just put it in the chat box, but hopefully your week has been good. It's a challenging week, right? There's new announcements and more fear and more uncertainty. Kelly says sluggish. I can relate to that. Do you know, is that work, Kelly, or would you just say everything in general? I feel like this is a period, I've spoken to a lot of people as well, guys, that the last week or two has been really, really hard. And it's almost like we've just been distracting ourselves and doing our best that we can during this period. But now, you know, it's the whole reactive approach, right? We've just left it there brewing away and distracted ourselves. And all of a sudden, all of it has resurfaced. And it's become very difficult for a lot of people to manage this last month or two. Of course, it impacts productivity, you know, everything. Kate says, really well, had a lovely conversation today with Kelly, been very productive. Cool. Kelly from here? Awesome, amazing, that's great. I like that. Not just work, really lacking energy and motivation in general. Yeah. Lack of motivation is tough. The only thing I would say that I've learned is just to not beat yourself up. Sometimes it's taking that step away. Like he won't mind me saying this, but David on our team, David Kurtman, you know, he messaged me the other day and just said, I'm just having a rough week. I don't really know why. And I said to him, look, just take a couple of days off. Take a couple of days off for yourself. Don't worry about work, you know, just a couple of days off, focus on yourself, you know, do what you need to do. David likes painting, you know, spend some time with the family. When was the last time you know, spoke to a therapist and all of this? And I just gave him that space, you know, work can wait. You know, I always sort of say work can wait. We almost tell ourselves work is a priority a lot of the times, but if something drastic happens, work becomes nowhere near a top priority, you know. And he you know, we spoke today, he's back to work and he's feeling better, he said. And sometimes all we need is that little bit of time out and to not beat ourselves up if we are lacking energy, we're lacking motivation, we're not really feeling ourselves. Caroline says challenging but good, reminding myself of self-care too. Mine's been good. Nancy says, I hear you, Kelly, so can relate to that. Pia says, mine's been good. I've managed to take some time off and do things for myself more than usual. Polly says, I don't even know where to start. Boyfriend is going through hell as a result of COVID. It's devastated his life. He's just been told that he will not be allowed to return to his job. It is no longer safe for him to work with patients. Furious. That's tough, Polly. And of course, you trying to support him through that is very difficult as well. Trying to take that pressure and his emotions away from him, I'm guessing as well, because of that's just naturally what we want to do is difficult. And it's just being there for him. And like you say, showing that compassion and reminding them that things can get better and there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. No worries, Janine. Cool. I really appreciate your honesty as always, guys. I really do appreciate it. But mindfulness is something that we can all learn from. And mindfulness, in my opinion, there's a lot of myths around mindfulness, right? And there's a lot of, I don't know, I guess it's the way that we've maybe been conditioned. I guess it's our lack of understanding, our lack of education around mindfulness. We're starting to see schools teach mindfulness now, but of course, even when I was at school, which was only 3 years ago, jokes, when I was at school, there was no mention of mindfulness. I don't even remember the term being a term. I don't even remember it being a word. I'm sure it was, but there was talks of meditation, right? And my personal experience is my dad used to meditate, and my dad meditated. I remember walking past his room one day, and there was music playing, and the door was shut, and we were told, Dad's meditating, leave him alone. And it was always like, what is meditation? I didn't really know what meditation was. And we then went away camping. It was me, my dad, my brother, and my mum didn't come with us, but me, my dad, my brother. And I can't remember how old I was. Maybe I was 12, maybe a little bit younger than that, 11 or 12. And he said, why don't we do some meditation? And me and my brother said, what's meditation? He says, you just have to clear your mind, that you can't think about anything. We'll just sit here for 10 minutes. We'll listen to some music. I think it was Enya. And we'll sit in this tent and we'll try meditation. You just got to clear your mind. Now, telling a 10, 11, 12-year-old, however old I was, to clear your mind is not the greatest, advice when it comes to meditation. So there I was, closing my eyes, listening to this music, saying to myself, stop thinking, just ignore your thoughts. And then I'm like, but now I'm thinking about not thinking, and now I'm not doing it right, and this isn't working, and this is terrible, and then all of a sudden I'm like, Dad, this just doesn't work. I remember him laughing, but basically that was my opinions on meditation, and that was obviously my dad's as well. You just got to clear your mind, but really there's myths around meditation as well, and one of those myths is that we have to clear our mind. But another myth is mindfulness is meditation. There's a real kind of blurred line between meditation and mindfulness. We talk about mindfulness and we say it's meditation. We say meditation and people think it's mindfulness. There's a real separation between the two. Meditation is a mindfulness practice, in my opinion. Okay, but mindfulness is far greater than that. And there's different practices which we'll talk about in just a minute. But the myth is mindfulness is meditation. It is something that we need to move away from. Mindfulness is about taking time to rest and relax. Again, mindfulness in a way is our chance to almost recenter ourselves, to release some stress. I'll talk about the benefits in a minute. It's our time for ourselves, and there's a lot of benefits for it. But mindfulness isn't always about resting and relaxing. It isn't always about I've just got to kick my feet up and rest, or I've got to find time where it's completely silent to do a mindfulness practice. We don't have to worry about that. There's a lot of times throughout our day that we can implement mindfulness, and it's not us sitting down with music and gongs and all of that. It's not always about resting and relaxing. There's ways that we can integrate mindfulness into our daily routine. My dad's one, mindfulness is having no thoughts. Sorry. Again, a complete myth. Whenever we're doing a mindfulness practice or a meditation, it's not about completely clearing your mind. It's more about finding space. It's more about giving yourself that time. And as we'll look at in a minute, it's more about just trying to create more calm, trying to create more peace. And if we're not practicing mindfulness, it of course can we distract ourselves and we're very, very busy. And mindfulness for me is, like I said, it's giving me that time to feel calm. It's giving me that time to feel more centered. And at the same time as well, it gives me that time to be aware of my thoughts, of my emotions. Sometimes when I've done mindfulness or meditation in the past, it allows me to bring attention to the thoughts, to the emotions I need to pay attention to. It's not about me being busy and distracting myself and ignoring them and then sitting down and expecting all of those emotions to disappear. What meditation or mindfulness for me is sitting down, and if I am doing a meditation practice, let's say as part of mindfulness, I'm sitting down, I'm about to do some meditation, and I'm just being aware of my thoughts. What's coming in. What does that mean? And then I'm trying to bring myself back to a focus of, let's say, my breathing, and then another thought will arise, another emotion will arise, and again, that's fine. But I'll bring myself back to my breathing, and then once I've finished, I'll sometimes recap and almost say to myself, why did that emotion come up? And it isn't about clearing your mind completely, so get that out of your head, because again, that's going to make us not want to start a mindfulness practice if we feel like that's our ultimate goal, to completely clear our minds. Myth 4 is the ultimate goal is to be mindful all the time. Again, mindfulness is a practice, and we'll talk about how to get started. And really, it's a conscious effort to embed it into your day-to-day routine. In terms of the ultimate goal, being mindful all the time, it's very difficult. I feel like I'm a lot calmer from doing various mindfulness practices over the last 8 years, I would say. I feel a lot calmer. I feel like I can deal with stuff a lot better. But at the same time, I'm not mindful all the time. I still have to remind myself and practice mindfulness to really kind of reap the rewards as well. And then mindfulness is bliss. Again, another myth that we're going to dispel today as well. Romana, no worries at all. I really appreciate that. Caroline, what a lovely memory. Yeah, it really is. Pia, I think mindfulness does also show in our interaction with others. Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. In terms of the benefits of mindfulness, before we move on to how we get started, and I'd love to hear your own personal opinions as well and experiences. Mindfulness, it can reduce anxiety and it can also help depression. When I look at those two, anxiety and depression, I look at my own personal experience. I've spoken about this before, but when I was really struggling with anxiety, a lot of my emotions were drifting towards the future. So a lot of my self-talk was around, I will never get married without my dad. I will never be able to move on with this situation of just what's happened. I am worried about the future financially, whatever it was, right? And I was always fixated on the future, which led to a lot of anxiety. At the same time, a lot of my depression came from ruminating on the past trauma that I'd experienced, trying to go back to that place that I was in, and feeling guilt around, my dad, and wanting to change it and seeing what we could have done better, and, reminding myself of that traumatic event. And of course, that leads to depression. And what Anne, the lady who helped me, made me realize is I can't control either of those. I can't control the past. The past is the past. I can learn from the past, but I can't control it. I can't change it. And at the same time, in terms of the future, I can indirectly change my future, but I can't directly change it. There's no way that I can control that. And she really reminded me the only thing that I can control is the present moment, the now moment. And I believe this is what mindfulness is all about as well, is us bringing us to that present moment, the now moment, which I'll explain again in a minute. But that's a real big benefit of it as well. It can help reduce anxiety. It can help manage depression as well, decrease stress. A lot of this has had scientific, proof into mindfulness and the impacts as well. Facilitation of recovery, physical illness as well. There's been a lot of research into using mindfulness for physical illness. It improves concentration, productivity as well. If we're busy, and as I think Piers just pointed out, if we're busy and we go into work, how is that going to impact how we feel? But if we feel calmer, if we feel like we can deal with situations, we feel like we're less stressed, and we go into work, our concentration, our productivity is of course going to be higher. It decreases the chance of burnout. As we've kind of said, a lot of mental health is very reactive. We wait until something is drastically bad, and then we do something about it. If we can practice mindfulness on a day-to-day basis, it can decrease the chance of us burning out. Of course, with the stress that we face on a day-to-day basis, it can increase self-control and of course improve sleep. Again, there's been a lot of research recently into the mindfulness and the impact of mindfulness on sleep, and not only how fast we fall asleep, but also our quality of sleep. So how well we sleep throughout the night. And they've tried to obviously pinpoint people that have been doing mindfulness practices for a long time and their quality of sleep in comparison to those that don't. And I think it's just a knock-on effect of all of this. If mindfulness can help reduce anxiety, can help manage depression, can help us decrease stress, improve concentration, then of course the impact of that across multiple things that we do in our day-to-day life is of course huge. So there's lots of benefits, and I'm sure you're aware of them, but to reap the rewards, consistency is key. Now, mindfulness as a practice is something that you can't just do once and then feel long-term impacts from it. You can do it right now and you'll feel better, but it will be that short hit of endorphins, that short hit of dopamine. It will be that short hit of, oh, I feel calm, I feel good. But long term, is that going to impact how you interact with other people? Is that going to impact your sleep? Is that going to impact how you deal with stress? Of course not. This is something that we need to do consistently. And again, this is why a lot of people shy away from it, or they try it for maybe a week, they don't reap the rewards and they stop and they write mindfulness off. Because really, for us to reap the rewards, consistency is key. We have to do this on a consistent day-to-day basis. But to get started, guys, firstly, we have to find your practice. And I really want to stress this. To get started, we have to find the practice that works for us. And I'm going to share some in just a minute. But mindfulness can sometimes be as simple as something that we do anywhere, anytime. Like I said, mindfulness isn't me sitting down on this sofa here with music playing, door shut, headphones in, and really, really sort of sitting there practicing meditation for 20 minutes. Mindfulness is something that we can do at all times, anywhere. And here's 5 examples. Body scan. You might have done this before, and we've actually added a body scan audio into the app recently, which you can do. And a body scan is, again, just a way of us being mindful. Typically, it'll be guided. Someone might do it for you, or you can obviously do it once you've had that practice. But it's really just focusing your attention on your body. I was reading as well in terms of falling asleep faster, because I was looking at some research yesterday, and there was a lot again around a body scan and how that impacts how quickly we fall asleep as well. So a body scan could be as simple as me bringing my attention to the bottoms of my feet and how they feel, and then it could be moving up towards my kneecaps. How do my knees feel? Moving up towards my stomach. How does that feel? Relaxing my shoulders, relaxing my jaw, and just scanning my body up and down. And straight away, I'm now becoming mindful because I'm focused here on this one practice, rather than me focusing on the email that I've got to send, or the stress that I encountered throughout the day, or the argument that I've just had. So really, it's kind of staying mindful, and we can do that with a simple body scan. Mindful seeing, just being aware of what we're seeing and really kind of taking it in, because unconsciously we ignore a lot of what we see. And sometimes if we remind ourselves to mindfully see and to look around and really to take it in, I think it's really important too. Mindful listening, again, how many times do we just ignore what we hear? And sometimes with meditation, I was doing a meditation practice once, and the lady who was helping me said, we're going to switch off all music, and I just want you to concentrate on what you can hear around you. If you can hear traffic, you hear the traffic. If you can hear someone breathing, you can hear someone breathing. If you can hear yourself breathing, you hear yourself breathing. Just, I want you to focus on what you can hear. And it's amazing when we use our senses, the impact that can have. Mindful breathing, which is the key one. Again, we've got lots and lots of different exercises within the EveryMind app, from breathing techniques such as breathing in for 4, holding for 2, and breathing out for 6. We've got box breathing. Again, when we're focusing on our breathing, it's mindfulness. It's us focusing our attention on this one thing, rather than focusing our attention onto everything else that we're worried about. And the 5 senses exercise as well. So really, these are 5 mindfulness exercises that you can do anywhere, just to really show you the impact of this and how it isn't about us sitting there and having a firm, rigid practice. We could do this 5 minutes a day when we're commuting to work, when we do commute to work, or when we're going for our morning walk. Can we use mindful seeing and mindful listening to really, really help? If we are waiting in the post office to deliver something, and instead of pulling out our phone, can we just focus on doing a body scan or doing some mindful breathing for the next minute? And again, being mindful in that moment as well. So there's lots that we can do. And again, when we're looking at mindfulness practices, people are actually discovering when it comes to mindfulness that there's various ways that we can be mindful. It could be walking. Again, walking is a mindfulness practice. Going out, maybe walking in nature, again, is really key. I've also put barefoot walking. Has anyone ever done this? I've been seeing loads of people on Instagram recently doing barefoot walking. They go to the park or a grassy area. They'll take off their shoes, they'll carry them, and they'll just walk around the grass bare feet. I saw someone in Shoreditch actually a couple of weeks ago when I was up there, walking around the streets bare feet as well. Um, Barefoot walking, yoga, again, a mindfulness practice is definitely yoga, meditation. And again, even when we're looking at meditation, there's so many different types of meditation. You can use apps that help. You can use guided meditation. There's various different types of meditation that you can really try and see what works for you. Running is my mindfulness. Some people don't feel like running is mindful, but especially because I've been doing a lot of long distance running at the moment, training for 8 marathons in 8 days in 8 cities in March to raise awareness for children's mental health. I've been doing a lot of long distance running, and that's mindful because it's just me out there on my own. And I think I've explained this before. Me and my dad used to run a lot together. And sometimes when I go out for a run, I always used to, just after we lost my dad, I do feel a little bit closer to him. It was an activity that we used to do together. I went out for a 45, 50-minute run on my own today. And then when I got back, I said to my boys, they were ready in their running gear. And I said, look, let's go for a quick little 15-minute run. My little 4-year-old, my 11-year-old, we were out running. And again, it's just my time to just connect with them, phones away, and just talk. So running is definitely my mindfulness practice. Reading, again, just you in a book. It's a mindfulness practice, right? You're just focusing on your book. Coloring, again, lots of people use coloring. Puzzles, which I've explained don't really help me, but puzzles help a lot of people. Swimming, even, open water swimming, if you can do that. I know a lot of people that they find that really impactful for their mental health. I did a talk for a company called Hawley, and I did my session. Hawley's a construction company. I did my, and one of their offices was Plymouth. And in Plymouth, they were right near the water. And when I asked them what they do for their mental health at lunchtimes, I'd say 50% of them said they go swimming in the water nearby, and then they come back to work. So, swimming is definitely a mindful activity. Golf, again, I heard someone say once, I didn't know why my husband was going golf every Saturday morning. And then he explained it to me, and I realized it was his mindfulness practice. Fishing, eating, mindful eating. How many times do we just scoff our lunch down? I know I've just had so I can get on this webinar, but how many times do we just scoff our food down and we're not mindful of what we're eating? Sometimes it's just taking that step back and being mindful of what we're eating and really using our senses for that as well. Massage, music, playing the favorite music and really listening to it, listening to the words. I used to do that a lot when I was young, sitting there in the car, listening to the words and just being mindful of the music that you're listening to. Painting, crafts, cleaning, cooking. Again, sometimes we see cleaning as a negative, but it can be a mindful activity for a lot of people. I know my wife, she says sometimes just her doing a bit of cleaning every morning is her mindful activity. It's her just focusing on that. Same with cooking. Sometimes for a lot of people that cooking is a mindful activity because you're just focused on cooking and what you're preparing and the food and how you're seasoning it and making sure that everything's cooking at the right time. And you're mindful in that one activity. And when you're mindful in that one activity, you're not worried about everything else that you're consistently worried about as well. So really, that's just me scratching the surface. There's so many other mindful activities, but what I really wanted to do with this slide is just to reinforce that you can do a variety of different mindfulness practices. I've done a lot of meditation in the past. Now, I would say the last time that I meditated was probably about 6 months ago. So sitting down and doing a meditation practice. But I feel like with my consistency of what I've done over the last, like I say, 7 or 8 years, and now with my running, I feel like that is my mindfulness. I'm still getting the impact and the benefits of mindfulness by me going out for those morning runs or those morning walks. Coloring is, not coloring, reading is one as well that I do a lot of. So I think it's really important that hopefully you can see that there's stuff that you can do on a day-to-day basis. Okay. Is there any else that you would say that you do, guys? Put it in the chat box. Polly says it's great self-care. I do mindful driving. Like that. which is something I developed myself as I have a long commute to and from work. I wanted the time to be useful to me. It's amazing how often we are in the car and running on autopilot. Mindful driving really reconnects you. Very useful. I love that. I love that because, we're typically now so consumed with Bluetooth and the music we're listening to. And, sometimes, let's be honest, people grab their phones and they're checking their inbox or their emails. This here is a lover and a curse for me because even my Apple Watch pings up when I got a notification when I'm driving. So I love the idea of mindful driving, and it's safe as well, right? We should all do it. Kelly says, I like thinking of cooking and cleaning as mindfulness. I always see these things I just have to do, but never really look for how these could be mindful. I would turn these negatives into a positive. Yeah, exactly. And to be honest with you, Kelly, I think it takes the type of person. Like, I mean, cleaning, I would have to really force myself to be mindful in that moment. And like you said, because it is that negative, for me, it's that negative. Some people just naturally are mindful in those moments, but for others, they have to force it upon themselves. So like you've said, it's trying to use those moments that we don't like. Ironing, to be honest with you, ironing is one that I do ironing in the bins, right? I'm sure if my wife can hear this, she'd come in and tell you the list of stuff that maybe I should do more of. But ironing is one that I've really embraced. And I used to hate ironing, and I never used to be able to iron. And to be honest with you, like I quite like ironing because it is that mindful activity again, right? You're just focusing on that, and it's turning that negative into a positive. I don't want to do it. I'd rather just get someone else to do it. But when I do it, it's, as you say, just trying to focus on being mindful in that as well. And then again, like sometimes I'll do that, but at the same time, I might just then put, a podcast on, and it's just my turn to listen to what I want to listen to. Being mindful when you're with your family as well. How many times do we see our family and we just grab our phones? Again, it's not always going to be 100%, but sometimes we do need to remind ourselves of that. Cycling is mine. I enjoy the time as I can let off my mind wander and tidy itself. Love that as well, Richard. Yeah, it is that. And hopefully you're seeing now that all of this that you're doing is you practicing mindfulness. It isn't about you sitting there meditating, and whatever we kind of believe that it is. It could be getting on your bike and going for a morning cycle. And that is you practicing mindfulness. So I do think it's really, really important. And in terms of how else we can get started, like I say, firstly, it's finding the mindfulness practice that works for us and that benefits us, or maybe there's a couple. Secondly, it's finding a time and building it into your routine. This is really key because unless we build it into our routine, it's very, very difficult. We have to force ourselves to do these mindfulness practices. So how do we build it into our routine? I've always found the best way of doing it is building it into our existing routine. So let's say the morning as an example. What is your current morning routine? And that could just be as simple as you get woken up by the kids. That's when you wake up. You go downstairs, you put the kettle on, you make yourself a coffee, you spend 20 minutes playing with the kids, and then you've got 15 minutes to watch the news or scroll through social media or whatever it is. And then you go have a shower, you get ready and you start work. Now, if that's my routine, I'm looking for a gap there of when can I practice mindfulness. So instead of saying I'm going to get up half an hour earlier, which of course works, but it's more difficult, what I could say is instead of me spending 15 minutes watching the news and scrolling through social media, that is going to be my time to do a mindfulness practice that's good for me. That's going to be my time to go for a 15-minute walk. That's going to be my time to do 15 minutes of reading. Journaling's another one that I didn't put down there. That's going to be my time to do whatever it is that's your mindfulness practice. So all you're doing is embedding it into your existing routine. So when you're about to scroll through social media, you get that kind of reminder of, actually, I'm going to replace this with a mindfulness activity. And consistency, again, is key because when we are then consistent, you just naturally build it into your routine, and then it will naturally come to you, and you'll naturally just do it after a long time as well. So instead of forcing yourself of, today, I'm going to do an hour and a half of mindfulness, because let's be honest, that's going to be very difficult. You might say, tomorrow morning, instead of doing X, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. And you build up that consistency. And as you build up that consistency, you'll start to do it a lot more as well. So it's finding a time and it's building it into your routine, a time that works for you. Focusing on staying present during the mindfulness practice. Just quickly, before I move on to this one, when you come back to finding time, a lot of people that we've spoken to, especially employees during this time, have said, going for a walk or doing some mindfulness before and after work is a really good way of starting and switching off. So For example, if I start at 9 o'clock, which is typically when I'll start, because I spend the morning, whether going for a run, spending time with the kids, Amy, whatever it is, I'll spend that morning for me. I'll start at 9. My switch off is what's blurred at the moment. Now I can be working till 6. I can be working till 6. I'll switch off until 7:30, and then I'll get back working from 8 to 10, 11. So that's the blurred area. So what I could do, like a lot of people do, is you have your morning. What are you doing that's mindful before? You start your day, and then you switch off at 5, and you do something mindful again. Lots of people go for walks in the morning, and then they go for walks after 5, and then that's almost like your commute to work and back from work, and then that's your switch off. So really, it's like finding that time that works for you. Staying present during the mindfulness practice is important. As you said, it's just that reminder to stay present. When distractions come in, when distractions fly in, it's okay. Make sure you're staying present when you're practicing mindfulness. It's okay to get distracted as well. So don't be frustrated if you get distracted. You're out cycling on your bike and all of a sudden you've got a phone call. You're out cycling on your bike and all of a sudden, Instagram has popped up and someone's messaged you and you want to find out what they've messaged you, and you go over to Instagram, etc. Try and remove those distractions. Sometimes, switching our phones into airplane mode or do not disturb, for example, is beneficial. But at the same time, if we get distracted, don't worry about it. Just bring ourselves back to the practice. So sometimes when I'm out for my run, I'm feeling very mindful, and all of a sudden I'll get an email pop up and, I'll ignore it. And then I'll see, oh, actually, I need to reply to this. And now, I've been taken away from that mindfulness practice. But it's reminding myself that's okay. I've been distracted. I'm going to bring myself back to the mindfulness practice. Let's focus on the run. That can wait. And then I continue. So really, it's knowing that it's okay to be distracted. Don't get yourself frustrated. Just bring yourself back to the practice. And do not judge yourself. Do not judge yourself if you miss a day of mindfulness. Do not judge yourself if you feel like you're not doing it right. Do not judge yourself if you find that mindfulness and you find calm in something that's completely different to what everyone else finds that calm in. It really is about do not judge yourself through this process. I spent the first probably 6 months, 12 months of meditation just really forcing it. And that was meditation. And I was judging myself that I wasn't doing it right, that I wasn't going into a deep meditation, that, I was listening to everyone else saying that they had these kind of experiences and I wasn't having those experiences. And I was really, really forcing it. And again, Anne really helped me with that. It's about not judging yourself, being okay with those distractions and just doing your best and knowing that with consistency, it will get better. It will get easier to do. So do not judge yourself at the beginning because it's going to be very, very difficult. And it really does take that conscious effort and consistency to reap the rewards. It's forcing it upon ourselves. And it's just the same as we say with self-care and prioritizing your mental health. We just don't do it because we're not conditioned to do it. So it's forcing yourself all the time to take that conscious effort to be consistent with a mindfulness practice, to be consistent with being mindful throughout your day, or at 1 o'clock, put in an alarm on your phone and it says, be mindful. And all you do is you spend the next 2 minutes using mindful listening, mindful seeing. You maybe, increase or you focus on your breathing, whatever it is. We have to be conscious and we have to apply that effort. And once we've done that for a period of time, it becomes a lot easier to just do naturally. And like we say, that's when we start to really reap the rewards of mindfulness as well. And then, guys, I want you to put in some of your experiences or any of the tips that you've got in terms of mindfulness. But just want to kind of finish up on these 2 quotes, which I really, really liked. Wherever you are, be there totally, which is Eckhart Tolle. And I think I've spelled his name wrong, so I apologize for that. But wherever you are, be there totally. And I love that because my natural instinct when I'm working is to feel guilty that I'm not spending time with my family, right? And my natural instinct when I'm spending time with my family is to feel guilty that I'm not working and I'm not driving this mission that I'm on, this purpose that I've got to really get people to talk about their mental health. And I'm being pulled left, right, and center. When I'm with my family, when I'm spending time with my kids and we are away, I feel guilty that I'm not seeing my mum and I'm not seeing my brother and I'm not looking and caring for my granddad. And that consistent pull from every direction is exhausting. And this reminder, again, Eckhart Tolle has got an amazing book called The Power of Now. He's also got an amazing book called A New Earth, Power of Now and A New Earth. And he talks a lot, again, about the present moment, releasing the ego, but really just forcing it upon ourselves. And I have to remind myself all the time, when I'm working, I'm working. I need to be there totally. When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. I have to be there totally. And I'm not perfect. You know, it's still a practice, it's still a journey for me, but I have to remind myself all the time to be there totally whenever I'm focusing on one task. And it just gets easier as time goes on. And then the final one, which I love, Sharon Salzberg, mindfulness isn't difficult. We just need to remember to do it. So hopefully this short webinar has shown that, mindfulness, in a way, there's various practices that we can use, and we can just do it in our own day-to-day lives. We can do it right now. We can do it on the train when everyone's around us. We can do it in a nightclub with the music playing. We can do it queuing up for the post office or while we're driving, whatever it is. Mindfulness isn't difficult. We just need to remember to do it. And that remembering to do it is us forcing ourselves to do it. And as I've said, the more we do it for a period of time, the natural and the more easier it becomes as well. So guys, any questions that you've got or any experiences that you want to share, drop them in the comments. I'll read them out. And again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Kelly says, I love mindfulness. I just don't practice it enough. I'm going to commit to making the time to do this more. Good stuff. Yeah, it is that commitment. And I think as well, Kelly, as you've said, you after this call, you might realize that you do practice mindfulness, but you do it in different ways. You might be mindful when you're, I don't know, sometimes it's, watching telly or whatever it is. And telly, that's a UK thing, isn't it? TV. And there's probably times where you are practicing mindfulness, and it's just being aware of those as well. So yeah, definitely that. But as you said, it is that constant reminder as well to do it a little bit more. But like I said, don't beat ourselves up if we don't, right? Any other experiences that you want to share, or any questions that you've got, guys? If you've got no questions, just say no thanks. No worries, Polly. Just seeing if you have any experiences that you want to share or any questions around mindfulness. No worries, Janine. No worries, Kelly. No worries, Nancy. Good stuff, Caroline. What I'm thinking of doing as well, guys, is there's a lot of people that I know that do mindfulness practices. We might do a live mindfulness practice over the next couple of months. I'll get that scheduled in. And if you have got access to the app, there's lots of content going in there around mindfulness. This month as well, our focus is on women's mental health. So actually the next couple of webinars that we do on a Tuesday, we may be looking at sort of subjects around that as well, which we'll be announcing very, very shortly. So we're adding a lot of content this August around women's mental health, focusing on, menopause, focusing on breastfeeding and how that impacts obviously mental health. We're looking at being a mom and how that impacts obviously your mental health, not being a mom and how that impacts your mental health. So there's lots and lots of content going into the app this August focused on women's mental health as well. I just want to read out Polly. She says, I had fantastic results of mindfulness. I really can't recommend it enough. I was given a sleep technique, which is breathing and counting. It was after a period of insomnia connected to depression. Yeah, and again, like that mindfulness of us allowing us to fall asleep quicker or more naturally is definitely going to be a big impact as well. Good stuff, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time out to join. As always, if you've got any questions that you want to ask, just reach out to me, paul@everymindatwork.com. And this is always the quick sessions, but we just want to kind of put something together every week to support you if you need it, and trying to open your eyes and your perspective to different stuff that we can do for our mental health. Katie, I'm going to come back to your email now. But really appreciate you all taking the time out, and enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. See you all next week.